initial probe finds signal interference, and the CBI has now been called in. The Railways has said this, that the driver was not at fault for the Odisha crash. Those responsible have been identified. Strict action is going to be taken. But Ashwini Vaishnaw kept on saying one more thing, that it's not okay for me to comment at this point in time. Now, politics aside, what have you understood with the overnight developments, Pankaj? Some crucial information has now come to light.
Definitely, Kabir. And I've just lined up all the newspapers, as you mentioned, Times of India, mentioning the probe into the railway accident, rail accident. Dainik Jagran, again, pointing front page news on train accident, saying CBI karegi rail hadse ki jaanch. The Tribune says sabotage, inquiry ordered, railway seeks CBI probe. That's Tribune's headlines, and Indian Express also says railways seek CBI probe. We have identified root cause. Those responsible, says Vaishnaw. Now, Kabir, as you mentioned, and unfortunate as it is, but the signal interference part is something which is different from a signal failure. And this is where the premise of probe will lie, that how come the signals changed very in quick succession, thus giving no clear indication to the loco driver of the Coromandel Express, and hence he could not put the brakes on, and the accident happened. Now, Railways asking CBI, many thought that why CBI is called in, because CBI does criminal, probes, investigations into criminal activities. But this particular aspect, the government is, as of now, the Railway Board also, as it addressed the media yesterday, is pointing towards basically a fault, a failure, a mistake from someone, maybe a human error, on the signal interference aspect of it, and not signal failure, and not the fault of the loco driver. Kabir.
Right, and just taking you through the information that's put out in nice infographics on the front page of the Times of India. It says, the Coromandel Express driver was not overspeeding and entered the loop line after receiving green signal to do so.
Right.
The Railway Board officials have also said that the Yashwant Howrah Express wasn't overspeeding either. Now, the Railway Board member Jaya Verma Sinha recalls conversation with Coromandel drivers soon after the accident. He was in his senses when he told us that he received a green signal. Well, it's unfortunate that the driver of the Coromandel Express died later on in the hospital. The Railway Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw says that setting of the point machine was changed. Now, point machines is a vital signaling device that enables trains to be directed from one track to another. Right. So you've seen those movie scenes, right, where the train just shifts its
direction,
the entire gauge,
yes,
entire gauge line. That's the point machine, and the point machine was changed. Another infographic point over here says the entire impact of the collision was borne by the Coromandel Express, as it was dashed into a goods train that weighed down with iron ore. Now, the death toll has been revised and lowered, Pankaj, to 275 from 288, as some bodies were counted twice, and the number of those injured stands at 1,175. Odisha Chief Minister Naveen Patnaik, he's announced an ex gratia of rupees 5 lakh to family members of victims from the state. Andhra Chief Minister Jagan Mohan Reddy has also announced rupees 10 lakh ex gratia. Now, a PIL has been filed in the Supreme Court seeking 2 commissions headed by former Supreme Court judges to inquire into the train accident and evaluate safety issues.
Indeed, Kabir, and also on the legal front of it, a PIL in the Supreme Court has sought a direction to the centre to set up a commission of inquiry headed by a retired Supreme Court judge and consisting of technical members to probe the train accident. The petition is likely to be mentioned today on an urgent basis. The whole aspect of finding the loved ones and giving the due burial and last rites to be performed, that is something now is becoming a challenge for the authorities, Kabir, because even if you watch several television news channels or the newspapers today, all the newspapers, the pictures that they have used is of family members looking at photographs, a pile of photographs, and
Absolutely.
trying to identify. These pictures have been taken of those dead and have been put up so that the grieving relatives could find a closure, and they could also
A photograph into 1,000 words. I mean, that's the picture that's probably been covered at all front page news.
Right,
You know,
right.
a scour of people around a single table, and from what you can make of these pictures, also from all the thumbnails that have been kept on the table itself, I'm not sure if everybody can make out who's who at this point in time. There's
Becomes very
mangled
difficult.
metal that you see from these three trains that have, collided. I was reading up that a family dinner saved the life of a 16-year-old boy because he was supposed to change his seat, but then the family said that we'll change the seat after dinner, and it was before dinner then when the accident took place, and that ended up saving the 16-year-old boy. Relatives have been scouring the crash site. You know what, Pankaj? It is a horrible sight. But even as we look at the negatives, and of course the huge death toll, one of the biggest crashes in our history when it comes to railway collisions, the first time responders on the ground, there's some heartwarming stories over there as well. Some real people who've stepped out, a little kid who saw it, rushed with aid. There was a man with a shop nearby who gave away free ration, free medicines, and free food supply to help all the people out there. I mean, that says and speaks volumes about the kind of society essentially Odisha has and us Indians in general.
Indeed, Kabir. We are sitting at least 1200 to 1400 kilometers away from the accident site. What happens on the ground, the way people respond to it, 7 o'clock in the evening on Friday, this accident happened. And after that, the first responders, as you mentioned, were the locals. And they not just helped those who were stuck in there using torch lights, using mobile lights, but also offered them food and whatever they could at that particular point of time. The gravity of the situation unfolded much later, that this three train tragedies has happened involving three trains, and that actually adds up and accentuates the whole trauma and tragedy of incidents like these. I remember 1995, I was a kid, and we heard about this Purushottam Express ramming into a stationary Kalindi Express, and that paints a picture. You know, railways has always been a part and parcel of every Indian's life. When such tragedies happen, the kind of overwhelming response you find from the locals, from people in and around that place, is something that can't be expressed in words. Remember the kind of the way people conversed at the hospitals to donate blood was also something which is worthy of taking note of, Kabir.
So, for information from the newspapers, restoration work is in full swing. Trial run is going to take place on the one track over there.
This is the visual.
That's the visuals on your streams, ladies and gentlemen. It's a trial run that is happening as the restoration process has already begun.